Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Our office has been flooded with calls, many as 1,000 a day, from people throughout the country. The main question is, what are you going to do about the murder of George Floyd? Well, I've just described what we're going to do. We are going to investigate it as expeditiously, as thoroughly, and completely as justice demands. Sometimes that takes a little time, and we ask people to be patient. We have to do this right, and that's what we'll do.
That's Mike Freeman, Hennepin County District Attorney. The person that will potentially be prosecuting the officers involved in the George Floyd death. Yesterday, the day before, absolutely unacceptable what took place. Absolutely unacceptable. Rioting, looting, takes away the message, destroys communities. That is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Across the country, you were seeing little flares up here and there, but Minnesota, in Minneapolis, it was ugly. And are we going to get another night like that? It's not. You'll see a little skirmishes here and there when people gather. It's when it gets dark and then people start to come out. And those people, there's a lot of people that come from different areas who want to get involved. And a majority of them are good, but it doesn't take a lot to turn it into something that it shouldn't be. Then it gets ugly. Then people lose their livelihoods. People lose their lives. That was unacceptable last night. Absolutely unacceptable. What took place and the death of George Floyd was awful. But there is a process. And that frustrates people. But you've got to go through the process. You have to dot the I's. You have to cross the T's. You have to make sure everything's right. What are they waiting for? Why haven't they? If you did it, you'd be in jail. Well, you're not arresting somebody. You're not. If you did it, you'd be... No, you're not arresting somebody. And the process, by the way, is one that they don't want to screw up. They don't want to overcharge and underdeliver. They don't want this thing to slip through. The world is watching them, wanting to see what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Well, you need every ounce of information you can find. Because when you rush to it and it falls apart because you felt there was pressure, that is not good. Not good at all. So you take your time. You get back the autopsy. You look at every ounce of video, talk to every single person. You go through everything. You go under every rock, every bush. You go everywhere you possibly can to find every little piece from every single angle. So when you present it to a grand jury, you present it and you've got it, you ready? Go. There. Here it is. This is exactly what it is. If you rush to it and then it's slap hazard and you throw it together and you go out there and you're feeling the pressure and all of a sudden because of that pressure you've acted and you've not done it right and then all of a sudden it goes to hell in a handbasket, you're going to get something worse. You measure, right? What's the old saying? Measure once, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once. Meaning do it the right way. We want to see justice. We want to see the system work. I think everybody wants that. But the rioting, the looting, unacceptable. Takes away from the entire conversation that we should be having because we're too busy sitting here watching things go down that shouldn't be going down, understanding people are pissed, understanding people are upset. But that's unacceptable. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from you. This is his own words George Floyd, talking about this generation. I think it's very interesting.
Our young generation is clearly lost, man. Clearly lost, man. Like, I don't even know what to say no more, man. Like, you youngsters just going around, just busting guns in crowds, kids getting killed, and it's clearly the generation after us, man, that's so lost, man.
Is there a generation lost? There is, in some cases. There absolutely is a generation lost. Not all cases. But it's interesting to hear it from his voice. It's interesting to hear him talk about this younger generation. I don't think he'd be happy with this. I don't think he'd be thrilled by this. I think he'd be pissed. And the reaction, the outpouring of love, people trying to come together and exercise their First Amendment right to protest, to assemble, to voice their anger, go for it. But when it crosses a certain line, what happens is the message changes. We have an opportunity here, but we have opportunities all the time in situations like these. At least once or twice a year, there's a situation like this where there's an opportunity to have a conversation. And when it goes like this, the conversation switches from what took place, how do we come together, how do we start dealing with things, to can't believe people are rioting and looting. I can't believe they're burning down business. I can't believe these things are happening. And we move from where we should be to the lunacy of where we are at this moment in time.
Yeah, Floyd, that the truth, man, right there, because he could bust a gun. Man, I knew it was crazy then. My age saying this here, man. You know what I'm saying? And condoning this shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like half them young shooting them guns go home and they knees shaking at night. But they don't show it to nobody because, they ain't tough then. Hey, man, come on home, man. One day it's going to be you and God. You going up and you going down.
Again, pretty powerful stuff. George Floyd. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from you. All of that being said, we also have something else that's going on. It's called a pandemic. And I read an interesting article yesterday in the Washington Post where this may be a situation where are we going to be in an endemic? And you're like, well, so we have a pandemic, you have an epidemic, what's an endemic? Well, pandemic, globally, you see what it is. An epidemic is a certain area. It's not global, right? So let's just say this happened only in New York or in just a certain area geographically. Well, that's an epidemic. Endemic it's here, right? HIV is endemic. It's not going anywhere. They haven't found a quote unquote cure. There is no vaccine. So we as a society have learned to live with it. We as a society have learned to understand that that's not going anywhere at this moment in time. So we're going to have to deal with it. And instead of hiding from it, if you will, instead of saying, well, we're going to come inside, we're going to learn to live with it. And that's a possibility. That is absolutely a possibility that we could be living in a situation where this thing is going to be endemic. It is going to be here. And unlike maybe the flu or some of these other things, it just might be here. And so while they look, which makes it in some ways easier to find a therapeutics, because if we know this thing may be around for a good long time, and more virologists and epidemiologists are all coming out saying, this thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This thing is here. It's not going anywhere. Even with a vaccine, it might only be the flu, and it may not be seasonal. It might just kind of be there. There may be spikes in certain times of the year. So that means that if that is true, then we're going to have to learn to live with it. But this isn't the new norm. Like yesterday, I was, I'm looking at the CDC guidelines to return to school. Because I got Jack. He's 9. He's going to be 10 in a couple weeks. He's been at, his school is hard. He goes to one of those STEM schools. The school's pretty damn hard. He is, his online experience has been longer than his actual school time. And that is driving him crazy because, he also doesn't have the outlet that kids have when, normally they've got sports and they've got a lot of things. They can go hang out with their friends. They don't have that. That's what thank God for the internet, right? Like he asked me the other day and I posted it. What was it like living in the 80s? You just take away their phone and the internet. There you go. Oh, God. But I was looking at the CDC, and they're talking about, well, you're going to have to maybe have plastic barriers between the desks. Desks going to have to be 6 feet apart. You're like, are you kidding me? And the mask be worn all day? Kids aren't going to wear a mask all day. I can't keep Jack can't wear a hat for 5 minutes. How are you going to tell somebody, and they're not going to have opportunities to play and get their wiggles out? Are you kidding me? And that's nuts. And I laughed. I said, what's funny is things like that make you laugh because you look at us and you're like, sometimes you think the government and officials and leaders treat adults like children. And then we're asking children to act and do what adults would do. It's nuts. Endemic, pandemic, epidemic. If it's here, we learn to live with it. We learn to live around it. But we also have to have some honest conversations about things like kids going back to school and saying to ourselves, I don't really think 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are going to wear a mask all day in between plexiglass desks 6 feet apart. The teacher's going to be spending more time being the social distancing police officer rather than teaching. That is not a recipe for success. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Happy Friday. Car Shield, where our sponsors our show, just awesome. I've got it. My family's got it. Less than, $100, you can get a protection plan for your car for whatever it is that you're looking for. You call them up, explain exactly. Say, I got a car. My car is 10 years old. Love it. It's got 100,000 miles on it. But I don't have any of the super electronics, but I do worry about my whatever it is that you worry about. Transmission, your engine, the whatever that is, they've got a plan for you. Maybe your car's a little bit newer. You're already out of warranty. You bought it used, and you're saying to yourself, I worry about the electronics. They've got a plan for that. With that, you get 24/7 roadside assistance, a rental car for free while your car's in the shop, and that shop is the shop that you choose. They get them paid directly. You pay a small deductible. It's that simple. Call them up. Tell them exactly, be specific what you're looking for. 800-CAR-6000. Mention code Benson, saves you 10%. Or carshield.com, carshield.com. Use code Benson to save 10%. A deductible may apply. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
When the adrenaline dump happens and then there is no launch, astronaut Katie Coleman says it can be tough. In 1999, her shuttle mission was scrubbed to T-minus 7 seconds. She says it's easy to tell yourself you will not get excited about the next attempt going through all the motions again. But then she says,
something about putting a spacesuit on, you just can't help it, because when you put a spacesuit on, you really might go to space. And it's so amazing.
The hardest part about her scrub launches, she tells me, was facing her mom afterwards.
Yeah, because her mom was probably like, Katie, really? You screwed everything up for everybody? That's what my mom would say. I'm like, what? What? Huh? Did you do this? Because I feel like this was your fault. It's like, never mind, Mom. Never mind. I get it. Oh, tomorrow, supposedly, they're trying. So the way it works, they're going to go either, hopefully tomorrow, but it's 40% chance, and who knows, and it's got to go at this precise time. People are like, why does it have to be precise? Why does it have to be? Because it's all about precision meeting up with the space station. So it's got to be precise. So that is a possibility. Sunday, if not tomorrow, they could try again. And then it would be Tuesday. It's going to happen. It's not if, but when. So tomorrow is a possibility. So we'll see what takes place. And it is exciting. It is, for all the chaos, the coronavirus, what's taking place in Minneapolis and across the country with the protests because of the death of George Floyd and all of these things. This is something that is very exciting. And we need this. We need little things like this to remind us that the world's not coming to an end, that if you go to like Huffington Post, USA Today, CNN, Drudge, Yahoo, wherever you go to get your news, or you go to these things and it's like, locusts. Locusts, what? Oh, there's a plague. It's everywhere. So you've got locusts over here. You've had fires, and now fires are raging in the inner city because of the anger of what took place with George Floyd. But you've also got wildfires. You've Australia burnt down. You've got volcanoes that are starting to make some noise. We've had earthquakes, and breathe, because those are the bleeds it leads. Let's always remember that. Let's always kind of get the things that are ugly, people will stare at. I go through it, say it all the time. You're driving down the street, you're in traffic, you see lights up there, you slow down and you look. You do. So let's remember there are good things going on as well. It's not all doom and gloom. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. More on Minneapolis, more on the coronavirus, consumer spending. How bad was it? And is there some good news? Is there? There might just be a little bit of good news, kids. Might be a smidge of good news. Smidge. And here's the other good news. It's Friday. For those of you who are currently in an office working. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Protesters have torched a Minneapolis police precinct and dozens of other buildings as well. Thousands of demonstrators flooding the streets demanding justice for George Floyd, a black man who died in police custody. The mayor has declared a local emergency, unsurprisingly. Now, in nearby St. Paul, fires have broken out as stores are being looted. Police have responded to protesters with tear gas and rubber bullets. More than 500 National Guard soldiers have been called out and sent to the area.
That's very interesting. BBC report. Listening to them cover it. Today, of course, the aftermath as people look around. So George Floyd killed. Seen on video. More videos have come out. The officers subsequently fired. Some protests turned to a little bit of unrest. The next night, protests turned to a little bit of rioting and looting. Last night, absolutely awful. Awful. Then you've got Trump tweeting about this.
Now, in response to the violence, President Donald Trump tweeting for the Minneapolis mayor to, quote, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. Of course, the National Guard had already been ordered in, not by the president. He then says these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd.
It's stuff like that. I get it, right? You play into your base, and people are pissed, people are angry. Then you've got and who people have a right to be. Then you have other people who come in and their behavior is ridiculous. They're acting, well, some of them are acting like thugs. They're going around, they're breaking stuff, they're stealing stuff, they're doing things. That is not what this should be about. But that's what it's become about. That's what it's become. That's what it's become. And instead of talking about the issue at hand, what are we talking about? Talking about tweets. We're talking about rioting, looting. We're talking about CNN being arrested, which was, let's be real, if I could, I think we should arrest all of the cable news networks.
We can move back to where you'd like here. We are live on the air at the moment. This is the four of us. We are one team. Put us back where you want us. We are getting out of your way, so just let us know. Wherever you'd want us, we will go. We are just getting out of your way when you're advancing through the intersection. Just let us know, and we got you. And this is a scene here playing out in Minneapolis. This is, I'm sorry?
You're under arrest.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officers, we can see that, and he's on the air right now.
Yeah, so they arrested them. They arrested the associate producer. The camera was on, too, the entire time, so they took them all into custody. They released him an hour later. And he said, look, they treated us right. We had good conversations. They were, affable. And why they did it, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But it's things like that where you're just like, ugh. But I want to tell you guys something. If you think this is ugly, and it is, I want to go back a few years to the riots in Los Angeles. Now, the riots in L.A. were so awful. I was in the middle of it. My mother had a company that was like a glazing company, still there, and she had huge corporate accounts and everything, so you have to go out and board up all these corporate accounts so it was insane being in the midst of it. But a lot of people think the riots started because of the video of Rodney King. That is not why it happened. It was the acquittal of the 4 white officers that led to the riot. So this happened months and months and months after the video. Months and months and months. Yesterday, everybody we want what? We want what? We want to get this right. No, we want you to give us justice now. This is Mike Freeman, the Hennepin County attorney, speaking about, hey, slow down.
I will just point to you the comparison to what happened in Baltimore in the Gray case. It was a rush to charge, it was a rush to justice, and all of those people were found not guilty. I will not rush to justice. I'm going to do this right. And those folks who know me in the African community know I will do my very level best, but I will not rush justice because justice cannot be rushed.
Can't be rushed. Let's do this the right way. Let's do this the right way. Yeah, zero problems with that. I know everybody wants justice immediately. Look, let's be real. We live in a society now. We want everything immediately. You ever text somebody and don't get a text back almost immediately? You get frustrated? I mean, that's the immediacy we want. We need to see this thing through in a way where you dot every I, cross every T, turn over every stone, talk to everybody that was there, every witness, get every camera angle, get everything you possibly can to make sure that when you present it all, it's done in such a way that it is so clear that there isn't, we've overcharged and at best will underdeliver in the courtroom, which isn't justice. But then people are saying, well, okay, but there's always two sides to every story. There is. And Mike Freeman said this yesterday, and it kind of went unnoticed. But here's what he said about what he's seen in the video But I also throw something else in there.
That video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that. But my job in the end is to prove that he violated a criminal statute. And there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
Ooh. Well, what does that mean? It means they're going to go through all the evidence. And there may be some evidence in this that doesn't support a criminal charge. Oh. I don't even know what that would look like at this moment in time. I couldn't tell you. If they came out 2, 3, 4 weeks from now and they said, we are charging him, but not with the death of, and what happens there? He's waiting for the autopsy. He wants to go through everything. But you heard him say it. There's also other evidence. I think people want to know what that is. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program as well. Don't know what that other evidence is? It'll be interesting to see how this plays itself out. And, of course, tonight, once the lights go out, if you will, once the sun goes down, things tend to change. And it's not always for the better. So check this out. We live in a world where, right now it's social distancing. Yesterday, what's the new thing? 6 feet may not be enough. It's not enough. I'm like, so what's now? It's 20 feet. Who's going to 20 feet? My God, what's wrong with us? Are you struggling with touch starvation?
Hugging, kissing, high-fiving, a pat on the back. Humans instinctually like all of it. And not only that, touch improves our daily lives.
When we're physically touched, tactile stimulation of the skin, we find that physical touch helps with things like reducing our stress, lifting up our mood, even improving our sleep quality.
Yeah. And that's true, though. I mean, how many of you out there right now? Right? Because what it does is it humanizes. It makes us feel like we're not alone. We may be in a room with people. We're in a rooms with people now all the time. Not as many as we once were, and there isn't the closeness that once was. An arm around the shoulder, a hug from somebody, a high five, knuckles. There isn't that. It's weird. Conversations are 3, 4, 5 feet apart. And there is something missing. And it is weird. I'll be honest. And I'm not a huggy-feely kind of guy, but it is, it's like I can't give my dudes high fives. I can't, there's not the handshakes anymore. I can't remember. I think it's been 4 weeks since I gave anybody a handshake. We had a couple officers that were in here, and he was introducing me to somebody, and I gave them, a handshake. And, of course, then everybody runs out of the room, and they all, scrub in like they're going to surgery. But there is something to that. It's weird. 2 weeks ago, my on-air partner from my other show, his wife came in, and she's awesome, and she gave me a hug. She's like, I'm a hugger, and she's like, and I'm like, and I gave her a hug because I'm not worried. I'm thinking to catch anything from a hug. But it felt weird. And it improves a lot of stuff.
Phoenix family doctor Natasha Bouillon says social distancing and lack of touch is leading to more people struggling with isolated feelings, depression, and anxiety. And she says it's actually physically changing people's brains.
We're seeing higher levels of things like cortisol. And we know that cortisol is a hormone that kind of leads to more detrimental health effects.
She also says it's leading to lower levels of oxytocin, often known as the love hormone.
We're not getting love. It's possible. So what do you do? Right? This is how I normally, like I said, I'm not very touchy-feely. Thank you to my mom. I get through that a little bit better. But there's a mental side of being, just because I don't hug touchy-feely doesn't mean I don't want to give knuckles, doesn't mean I don't want somebody to come, give a slap on the back or to, so you got to do something else.
While nothing can fully replace human touch, there are things that can stimulate the skin to help.
So I tell people, make sure that you're exercising, that you're moving, that you're doing things like dance and yoga.
And Dr. Bouillon says one of the best things you can do to help is get a pet. Having a pet can help reduce stress and also bring you joy. Of course, she also encourages anybody to see your doctor or a mental health professional if you're dealing with feelings of isolation or touch starvation.
Touch starvation. Producer Phil, that's the name of my new album.
I'm with you.
Touch starvation. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? Like, that's awesome. My new album's called Touch Starvation. I think you guys are going to like it. It's really good. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. And we talk about all this craziness, but you could draw comparisons. You look at something like an older generation right now that really has to be separated, especially people with underlying conditions, and they're missing something. They're missing their family, grandma, grandpa. They're missing hugging their grandkids. And even in a situation like this where, again, the race comparison and when you talk about the fact that you see people are angry and pissed, and there's just something about closeness that we're missing. And I think that's a real thing. I do. It is. You look at Jackie Robinson. One of the things they talk about with Jackie Robinson, and it was Pee Wee Reese, right? Here's this white baseball player, and in a time of ugliness, as you've got Jackie Robinson, who's crossed the barrier and is in the major leagues, and he's not playing for a black team, a Negro League baseball team. He's playing there, and all the hell he was going through. And what changed in some people's minds is, here comes Pee Wee Reese, a great Dodger, puts his arm around him in front of everybody. And it was just a little thing like that humanized and changed stuff. We're missing it. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Wounded Paw. Speaking of pets, they're not pets. They're service dogs, and Wounded Paw needs your help. If you have any unwanted car, truck, RV, no matter what it is, they will take it. I say, if it flies or it floats, it's awesome. They take the money that they make from those, and they use it to protect, advocate, and train shelter dogs and turn them into service dogs for first responders, veterans, and their family. The work they do is incredible. And veterans struggle in many cases, with PTSD and in some cases injuries. These service dogs go a long way to helping them. And the same thing goes with our first responders and their family. You can give and donate at smile.amazon.com. Set your supporting group up for Wounded Paw Project, or you can also give cash. Check it out for yourself. See the work they're doing. WoundedPawProject.org, WoundedPawProject.org, WoundedPawProject.org. Chad Benson Show.
I can't take it anymore!
Well, get over it. It's time to forge a new path with your very own political cartographer, Chad.
Steve Carell returns to TV today.
This is a great adventure.
He plays the commander of Space Force in the new Netflix comedy from the Office creator Greg Daniels. Apple TV Plus premieres its new animated comedy Central Park from the creators of Bob's Burgers, the movie The High Note.
I can't hear you, Detroit!
Stars Tracy Ellis Ross and Dakota Johnson. You can rent that online. Hulu has a new season of the critically acclaimed comedy Rami, a new season of Somebody Feed Phil on Netflix, and one of the strangest new shows reflecting the times, Haircut Night in America on CBS.
Watch my ear out!
In which celebs learn how to cut their hair at home.
That's where we are. Celebrities cutting your hair at home. Now they've got is it Watch Party, I think, where you watch celebrities and their family members watch other shows and react to it. I mean, that's where we are. We're so starved for something new. Like last night, I got Quibi. I tried the 90-day thing with Quibi, which is where they play those small little so it might be like an hour episode of something, but instead of hours, they're 7 minutes, 8 minutes of the story each time. And they've got huge stars. And I watched a few last night. My issue is with something like Quibi is there is nothing on it. People are starving right now, especially being home for new content, and the content you're providing is very minimal in something like that. So we're at the point where, like, let's watch somebody who's watching something else, who's watching somebody else watch something else, who is like looking into a mirror and there's 1,000 mirrors and you just keep seeing down the hallway. That's where we are because we're starving for stuff. There's no sports. Golf's coming back in a couple weeks. The Bundesliga in Germany's up, getting closer, I think, to announcing what will happen with the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball. It's getting closer to zero every single day. And the Premier League, which is probably arguably the most watched thing in the world, announced yesterday they'll be coming back on the 17th. So that's good. But still, no fans. Although Texas said yesterday when it comes to fans, they will allow 25% capacity inside of said stadiums. We shall see. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Watch somebody watching somebody watching something. And then you're watching them watch you, watch them watch you. Ha-ha! Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
The FBI is looking for any new videos showing the deadly encounter and will be dissecting every frame of that video of Floyd's death. Sources are telling me the FBI plans to do a detailed background investigation of all the officers, especially the one who had his knee on the back of Floyd's neck. To prove a civil rights case, the FBI would likely have to show some level of bias by the officers and a specific intent to violate Floyd's civil rights.
And that's going to be the thing that the FBI is looking at. Look, here's something. What if they don't get him for murder? That is a possibility. That is a possibility. What do you mean? They've got to get this guy for murder. They don't have to. Yesterday, Mike Freeman, who's the guy that is this is the guy that is going to be looking at this, putting everything together. He is the county attorney. First of all, he told everybody, just chill.
Our office has been flooded with calls, many as 1,000 a day, from people throughout the country. The main question is, what are you going to do about the murder of George Floyd? Well, I've just described what we're going to do. We are going to investigate it as expeditiously, as thoroughly, and completely as justice demands. Sometimes that takes a little time, and we ask people to be patient. We have to do this right, and that's what we'll do.
Doing it right. Measure once, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once. Meaning, do everything that you can. Get everything ready. So when you submit it, whatever it is, the charges, if they're coming, they're not. When you do this, you do it and you lay it out in such a way that people understand exactly what it is and that it's a slam dunk. And I say whichever way, because he also said this. And this is very interesting. So here it is. Hennepin County prosecuting attorney, DA guy. This is the guy that is looking at all the evidence, is putting it all together. That would be filing the charges. The FBI is doing something that would be a federal case. He wouldn't be involved with. That would be his civil rights. But Freeman said this.
That video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that. But my job in the end is to prove that he violated a criminal statute. And there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
Wait, what?
And there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
Oh. That's what would that be like? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what that would look like if they don't prosecute. Now, I think they're going to, but is it going to be enough? What if, throwing it out there, it's only assault? What if it is something that doesn't rise to the level of murder? What if 2 of the 4 officers are reinstated? Because there's one camera angle where you see 3 officers, and then there's one angle where you really only see 2, and I've not seen the 4th. I mean, this is when you have emotion, and emotions are running high, as you can tell, when you see all of these things. What if it's not what people want? How does that look? Minneapolis, Minnesota, pretty progressive state. It's a left-leaning libertarian kind of feel, but it's definitely progressive, especially Minneapolis. But this guy, they've looked into this cat on more than a few occasions, by the way.
Police records show Derek Chauvin, the officer who had his knee on Floyd's neck for several minutes, has faced more than a dozen complaints over the course of his 19-year career with the Minneapolis police, disciplined for 2 of them. It's uncertain what the complaints were for.
Don't know what they for. He was put on administrative leave in a shooting that he was involved in with other officers. He went to a domestic call. A woman had been stabbed. Guy grabbed a shotgun. He shot him. The guy lived. And another one, there was an officer-involved shooting that resulted in the death of a person. But they say an officer fired a shot. There were several officers. He was part of the officers, whether or not it was him. So, and they're going to look, and they're going to try to get everything they possibly can. But to get to that point where they charge, they need to know this is what we're charging him with. So you need to get all the facts, but you also need to get back the autopsy, which is going to take some time. The family already said they want an independent autopsy so they can probably compare and contrast. But what happened and what has been happening, and quite frankly, what I think is going to happen over the next 2 nights, the potential for this thing to get even uglier is very real. And that is not something that I think George Floyd would have wanted. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. All of that being said, we're still in the middle of this damn pandemic. Doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Some states are doing okay. Some states aren't doing well. It's really interesting to watch the way that the states are dealing with this, because as you watch some of these things, I just feel like, it's tough to trust what the states are putting out. It's tough to trust that because in their quest to reopen, in their quest to, to continue to hold the line, I don't know. What are you looking at? Like, where's your, I'm looking at this data point. Well, I'm looking at this data point. No, I'm looking at this one. And everybody's cherry picking their information to get the things that they want. And the reality is it's still here, at least at this moment in time. And the Washington Post had a great article yesterday about this thing being endemic rather than a pandemic or an epidemic. So epidemic is there is a spike in something, right? So let's just say the South or the Southwest gets a massive flu and it only is in a certain geographical area and that's an epidemic. Pandemic, what we're seeing right now, global. Endemic means it's just here. There's no seasonality to it. It's just an underlying thing that's there. Imagine somewhat endemic is the flu, right? Because we know it's coming back. It's not like the flu takes a couple years off and then comes back. No, but it's seasonal. but we learned to live with it. And something that would be endemic would mean there was no season. It's just kind of here, underlying HIV, cancer. These are things that we just learn to live with. And that's the possibility of what this might be, which is endemic, meaning it could be here for good. And it could also disappear. So with all of that being said, we're still trying to figure out where we go from point A to point B. We're looking at if you saw the consumer numbers were just awful, the worst in our history, but we're starting to see some spending back as stuff starts to reopen. But you've got massive, massive, massive unemployment. How does that look? Where does that go from here?
As some are preparing to head back into the fray, more than 40 million Americans are out of work. 2.1 million people filing new unemployment claims last week, 40 million in the last 10 weeks. Around the country, people waiting in line for food that stretches as far as the eye can see.
Yeah. And that's massive. You had 41 million people unemployed. Think about where we were 5 months ago. So flips over to 2020, going through all this stuff. We get through the Super Bowl. Things are good. We see what's going on over in China. But may or may not come here. Life, we're talking about I was thinking the other day, we had primaries a few months ago. Does anybody remember that? Does anybody remember the likes of Pete Buttigieg or Eric Swalwell or Elizabeth Warren and all? No, that stuff is gone. That feels like it's 3-4 years ago. We have an election coming up, and we thought this was going to be the battle. The economy versus whoever the left, the Democrats had, taking on Trump and his tweets and his craziness and his division and then the division on the left, and this is what it was going to be, and gone. That stuff seems like eons ago. And now, all of that. And I said, at the end of the day, the economy will be Trump's best friend or worst enemy. But that was not pandemic. That was normalcy. We're in pandemic. You can't blame Trump for all the job losses. If you do, you're an idiot. The question, I think, is going to be, if this thing is here, who do you trust to get the economy going and rocking again? Is it Biden or is it Trump? Biden shows tons of empathy. Haven't heard a lot of plans. Trump has very little empathy and is not good at the touchy-feely and is divisive and can be. Well, he's Trump. But the economy he was good on. And even the polls come out and say, look, more people trust Trump with the economy than they do Biden. Is the chaos going to get Trump? It's possible. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson shows your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Text the program as well. Speaking of economy, speaking of stuff, I'm going to save you some money. Gabi.com. I want you to go there, GABI.com/Benson. When you do, they're going to show you how you can save money. And it's absolutely free. It takes 2 minutes. They're going to give you apples to apples comparison of your current coverage of your homeowners and car insurance. Okay? You'll see quotes for the exact same coverage you currently have. Find out if you're saving money. My homeowner's insurance, perfect. My car insurance was insane. And we saved well over $1,000. You can do the same thing. Takes about 2 minutes. Average Gabi customer saves $825 a year. That can be you. They're never going to sell your information. No knowing spam or robocalls. None of that stuff. And it's totally free. Takes 2 minutes. Check it out right now. Gabi.com/Benson. See how much you can save on car and homeowners insurance. GABI.com/Benson. Gabi.com/Benson. Chad Benson Show.
No need to fear. We promise we won't give you a noogie and make you cry Russia, Russia, Russia.
Who is the fearless leader? Pooey. Pooey, pooey, and double pooey. What is your language? This is a family show, remember? Who is the family too?
Nostrovia. This is Chad Benson.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending? Oh my goodness, kids. So many things trending that isn't coronavirus for a change. Today's National Burger Day. I just want to point that out. Here's some good news. National Burger Day. If you don't like a hamburger, you're un-American. Isn't that nice, though? Like, yeah, that's nice. I love burgers. I'm probably going to have one. Yes, Minneapolis, trending. Riots are trending. Omar Jimenez, who was and still is a CNN reporter, was arrested live on TV. I joked and said they should arrest them all, not just, all the cable news networks. Just come in and just arrest all of them. Just arrest the cameras, arrest everything. Just, you name it, arrest it. Lady Gaga's trending. Why? Because she's got a euphoric dance pop return. It's called Chromatic. Chromatic. You guys ready for that? Apparently she released it. Big time. Wonder how many she'll sell. Do you sell? Do they sell now? Do they just give it away? I don't even know anymore with how they make, used to be albums, how many albums they sold, how many units they moved. Now it's all crazy. You give it away, you don't give it away, you get this, you don't get that. We make our money on the tour, but we can't tour. Head over to Twitter. Lots of stuff trending about what took place yesterday and is still feeling like it's going to explode more, including what will be the DA, right? The lead prosecutor, Mike Freeman, who said there is some evidence other evidence that does not support criminality in the death of George Floyd. And I do not know what that would look like. And again, you don't know what something like that looks like if it goes south and they do not prosecute the officers involved in his death. White House, the Twitter, Trump doing what he does, tweeting, because that's Trump. Thugs is trending because he talked about thugs. You just sit there and you're like, that's, of all the stuff, I've liked some of the stuff Trump does. Some of the other stuff I can live without. It doesn't, I'm not that kind of, it doesn't appeal to me. Maybe it appeals to his base, and it works. And what are you going to say? He's president. You can't argue against that. But some of it is just, I could totally do without. I really could do without. And some of the stuff he does is just so directed at his base. And I sit there and I shake my head, And where Biden gets it right and where Trump gets it wrong. And you know what? Trump has every right, and we all do, to be pissed about what took place in Minneapolis. Like, we should all be pissed. This is not the way we handle things. Understanding that people are angry but that's not the way we do it. But it's frustrating. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. It's Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I will just point to you the comparison to what happened in Baltimore in the Gray case. It was a rush to charge, it was a rush to justice, and all of those people were found not guilty. I will not rush to justice. I'm going to do this right. And those folks who know me in the African community know I will do my very level best, but I will not rush justice because justice cannot be rushed.
We live in a society where we want justice immediately. We want justice. We want what happened to George Floyd. We want those people arrested. We want them tried, and we want the sentence. But it doesn't work that way. And I understand the untrust of the system. The system, in particular with African Americans and people of color and poor people, has failed. Because people who have money are able to do things. And really, when people talk about the color of the system and how it goes against, a lot of times that is against, it's the green. You got the green. You can do things that you just can't. You have a great defense attorney. You can get out of things that, in many cases, doesn't matter what color of the skin. But in particular, though, for years, especially in the criminal side of things, it has been unbalanced. And people want immediacy. That's the Hennepin County attorney, Mike Freeman, talking about, remember Freddie Gray, right? So the rush was, let's grab him, let's do it, let's prosecute him, let's get it all done. And at the end of the day, what ended up happening? Nothing. It fell apart. Because the rush to do it based on the social pressure failed. You can't have that. You've got to do everything. You take your time. You look through everything. You get all of the pieces in place. You get everything in place and ready. So when you are presenting all of this, the evidence is there for everybody to see, and it's not one of those situations where it's just slapped together and crumbles, because that would be far worse. But then he went on to say this.
That video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that. But my job in the end is to prove that he violated a criminal statute. And there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
What? There's what?
And there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
So there's evidence that may not support a criminal charge. Oh, my. You got to put it together. You got to cross the T's, dot the I's, get everything in place. But that stands out to me when he says that.
And there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
What if there isn't a criminal charge? Now, he could still face, and probably will face, civil rights violations and the feds. But is there a possibility? That's why he's waiting. He wants the autopsy. He wants to see what the autopsy says. He wants to put all of this together. I got to have the autopsy. I need to know exactly what it was. I need to know exactly how he died. I need all of these things. So when I present something, because what if he goes and charges now and it's overcharged and underdeliver? Or what if he undercharges because he went early and he could have, again, it's let's do it right. And I think they will get it right. I do. I think they will get it right. But in this want of immediacy in everything that we do, Sometimes you just can't just go and do it because in the hopes to get everything done right now, you forget all of the other things. And at the end of the day, everything crumbles. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. Yesterday, Trump doing what Trump does, mad at social media, angry.
Social media giants like Twitter receive an unprecedented liability shield based on the theory that they're a neutral platform, which they're not an editor with a viewpoint. My executive order calls for new regulations under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act to make it that social media companies that engage in censoring or any political conduct will not be able to keep their liability shield. That's a big deal.
Yeah. It's crazy because Trump lives on Twitter, right? He lives on Twitter. And yeah, they've got bias. Of course they do. Silicon Valley is completely to the left. Hell, if you even speak up a little bit and you're on the right, you're going to be struggling for a very long time in the position you're in. And eventually you'll pay the price for it. In saying that, are they shielded? Yeah, they're shielded from liability. I'm frustrated with them, because, look, I'm straightforward. I don't think it's anywhere near what some people think. But it's definitely skewed because you've got people that are, making certain decisions, doing certain things from the YouTubes to Twitter to Facebook that are all based on things out there that we don't know what's behind the curtain. And that's frustrating. And that's absolutely frustrating. But yeah, there's bias there. But this has no teeth to it. But if you're going to go after them, and you could get the FCC and you could get Congress to act on this, this is the way to go. As far as the shielding of them and the liability, I mean, that's the pocketbook right there.
What they're doing is tantamount to monopoly, you can say. It's tantamount to taking over the airwaves. Can't let it happen. Otherwise, we're not going to have a democracy. We're not going to have anything to do with a republic. Finally, I'm directing my administration to develop policies and procedures to ensure taxpayer dollars are not going in any social media company that repress free speech.
And, and it is frustrating. Look, let's be real. It's absolutely frustrating for some people out there. I've got friends on the far left, and some of them have pretty big shows, and I've got friends on the far right, and they have pretty big shows. And yeah, we've had stuff that we're like, I don't know what we did. We posted something, I think it was late last year. It was about Greta Thunberg, and it was so funny because it was from like the BBC or one of the, a big publication in Europe. And it was all true. And we got flagged for it, and we couldn't get on our Facebook for a week. And we're showing them, look, this is true. This is not us. And it was so funny. So yeah, there's frustration. And again, that's behind the veil. Right? You lift the veil or go behind the curtains like the Wizard of Oz. Who's pulling the strings? Who gets to decide what is and isn't real? What isn't, somebody sent me something earlier today with President Biden and, or Vice President Biden, and somebody said, this is a picture of, Biden and the Grand Wizard. I'm like, that's a lie. That's not real. Yes, it is. And you're showing them it's not real. And then the other side yesterday, there's this picture of the officer involved in the George Floyd death, and it shows him standing next to Trump and all this stuff, and people are posting that. I'm like, that's not real. And it's everybody does it. But some people, because the people behind the curtain do have biases, do lean left, will turn a blind eye. And others, they'll scrutinize more. If you want to fact check, you fact check. It's not that hard. If you want to fact check something, you can do it. And I think part of this goes back to the personal responsibility of every individual. But see, because we live in these little bubbles now, because we live in this world where you consume the things that you want to consume the way that you want to consume it, your news, your information, and the left does it here and the right does it here. And you know, because of that, we won't fact check anything that goes against the belief system that we have because we want it to be true. Just because you want it to be true doesn't make it true. So why would you fact check something that you want to be true? And in your heart, you're fine with that. Then he was asked about, yes, Twitter.
Mr. President, given your concern with Twitter, have you given any consideration to deleting your account, to just walking away?
Largely, I find, at least in a political sense, there's so much fake news, it's disgraceful. I would do that in a heartbeat if we had a fair press in this country, I would do that in a heartbeat. There's nothing I'd rather do than get rid of my whole Twitter account, but I'm able to get to, I guess, 186 million people when you add up all the different accounts and add Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah. And that's how he reaches his base. That's how he reaches his base. He reaches his base in ways where he wouldn't be able to. He can feed the base all of the information they want to consume. And they're fine with that. And they don't want to leave their bubble, and they don't want to go outside and see if maybe this is or isn't true. And on the other side, the left, they get their food from where they want to get it. They consume it that way. And they think everything Trump does say is a lie. And even if it's true, they want it to be a lie. So they're not going to. At the end of the day, let the free speech, as long as you're not advocating violence, let people do their thing. If you want to believe something, that's on you. If you're not willing to do the work, and it sucks that we have to do the work, if you're not willing to go look for yourself, it's on you. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. What would he do if he didn't tweet? That's like 90% of his job. Like, what would he do? All right, I guess I got to do this presidential stuff. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Raycon, best earbuds around. Going to put mine on in a little bit. Go out, run around, work out. Love it. If you're at home, like a lot of people are, and you're saying to yourself, kids are driving me crazy. Can't hear. I look stupid with these dangling wires when I'm trying to do these Zoom calls. And you see that more and more on TV when they interview all these people because everybody's at home. And so they're interviewing people and they've got don't be that. Raycons, they're so compact. The design's amazing, fits right in your ears. And let me tell you something. You should be spending 3 times as much. Start well under $100. These E25s last 6 hours. Great bass. Better sound quality, seamless Bluetooth, and yes, that noise-isolating fit will go a long way in whatever it is that you're doing. Phone calls, video conference calls, sitting there listening to your favorite podcast, whatever it is, you're going to love it. Start well under $100. Get yours now. Save 15% on top of that. Go to buyraycon.com/Chad. 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 Chad Benson Show.
Take a fake news break. Check out the really important news of the day at our website, ChadBensonShow.com. Once there, click on Chad's free podcast and get real. The Chad Benson Show, where truth and the American way live. Print free.
So imagine this, if you will. In the day and age that we live in of immediacy, where you can go online and get anything you want. Just about well, you can get anything. Let's be real. You can get anything. But you want that anything to arrive in a timely fashion, then there's this cat.
I hadn't ordered anything from well.ca in a while, and then I remembered that I one time about 8 years ago ordered something from them, and when I opened it, the invoice said it was that order, and I was more confused, if anything, after realizing that. And
8 years. He ordered something. 8 years. It showed up.
So I ordered some barrel cream. I was a little embarrassed about it, but that's okay. If I remember correctly, Mad Men was pretty popular back then, so I think I was trying to get the Donald Draper kind of haircut, and so I ordered some of that to try it out, and it never came, so I never got to try that out.
Brill cream, by the way, is what he was trying to say, not barrel cream. What Brill cream is you just you go and you get like oil just straight out of the well and just put it in your hair and slick it back. 8 years he waited for it.
I think it was just in a corner somewhere, and then someone just decided to mail it. I thought it was pretty funny that, they didn't just throw it out or something. The tracking thing that the tracking code, I looked up and it wasn't valid, so I wonder if, it was just kind of sitting by the front door or something for 8 years. And
the scary thing is it's still good. Remember, Brill cream.
Brill cream, Brill cream, Brill cream, Brill cream. A little dabble do ya, use more, only if you dare. But watch out, the gals will all pursue ya. They'll love to get their fingers in your hair.
Get Brill cream in this handsome package today.
A little dabble do ya. Because it's petroleum jelly. It's oil. Kids, a little dabble do ya. And don't get near an open flame or your head will never look the same. Brill cream, a little dabble do ya. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from all of you. Again, ugliness still. What will happen tonight? When it comes to Minneapolis, there are going to be more protests across the country. Are we going to see a calming down? Or are we in for a weekend of ugliness, especially as we go from daylight to nighttime? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at me. You can text the program. Check out the Instagram as well. Yeah, social media. Trump, I'd delete my account. You would not delete your account. Would not do that. That's how you talk to everybody. And again, that's part of that. You should put that in. What was your job? I was president, and I'm a professional tweeter. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Ugly. It's the best way to describe everything that's been happening in Minneapolis. From the death of Mr. Floyd to the subsequent riots, looting. Ugly. Why are they chanting that? And by the way, that chant was heard all over the country last night. I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Because he was saying he couldn't breathe. Officer has him down. Knee on the back of his neck and the side of his throat. He's saying he can't breathe. Protests started They were peaceful, then they weren't. And it was ugly. Then we moved to yesterday's protest. And it started bad, and it got worse. National Guard's been called in. And now you've got a situation where the cities and the surrounding areas are on edge because it feels like it is a tinderbox waiting to explode. It feels like this is going to be something potentially Friday. I don't want it. I don't think anybody wants that. And what's it do? It takes away from the conversation we should be having. But we're not. We're not. We're not having a conversation because we're spending all of the time talking about the rioting, the looting. And that's not good. It's not. And I don't want to give people who were there, because let's be real, right? And this is what sucks. Having been through a riot in Los Angeles after the Rodney King verdict, and we'll talk about that in a second. What's ugly is so many people show up to cause hell, to cause havoc, to do certain things, to blow off steam, to whatever it is that they think they're doing, and that somehow they feel that this is what they need to do. And what ends up happening is everybody else who has a right to be pissed and angry sees their community get devastated, and they're left to pick up the pieces. So you go from one tragedy to another incident that creates more tragedy and issues, and it doesn't help anything because we stop talking about the thing we should be talking about and are focusing on too many other things. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Text the program as well. Try to get back to everybody I possibly can, but I get a lot of stuff through the day. And, you know, I've been through one of these. So, first and foremost, let's talk about what could happen. Right? As far as where this could go. Everybody wants them to not only prosecute them, but essentially to have the trial and do everything today. Right? This is the county attorney of Hennepin County, Mike Freeman, talking about why we've got to slow the roll.
I will just point to you the comparison to what happened in Baltimore in the Gray case. It was a rush to charge. It was a rush to justice. And all of those people were found not guilty. I will not rush to justice. I'm going to do this right. And those folks who know me in the African community know I will do my very level best. But I will not rush justice because justice cannot be rushed.
And by the way, I think he meant African American community. I don't think he's prosecuting something in Africa. So the rushing is right. We can't rush. Don't rush. Don't rush. Don't rush. And you can't. You've got to do everything by the book. And by the way, that book has not been fair to people of color. By the way, that book has not been fair to blacks, not been fair to Hispanics, not been fair to poor whites. That book. And people they're on edge for a lot of reasons. And they're waiting. They're waiting. So many people are waiting for that shoe to drop. And he dropped a bit of that shoe yesterday, which I found to be very interesting.
That video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that.
So you hear them. The video, let's hear it again. Graphic, gross, horrible, nobody should do it.
That video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that.
But then he said,
but my job in the end is to prove that he violated a criminal statute. and there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
Whoa. Hold on a second. Graphic, awful, nobody should ever do that. But I am here to make sure I can prove that. And
there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge.
If you think it's bad now in Minneapolis, and in several other places, there's been skirmishes and there's been incidents. Here in Phoenix, there was some last night. L.A. the night before. Nothing like what's going on in Minneapolis. I go back to Rodney King. So the Rodney King incident, we all remember the beating on tape, right? We all remember what took place with Rodney King, and it was horrible. If you're too young to remember, it was an incident that was vile, tough to look at, and when you see the beating, when you see what took place, when you see it, and this was well beyond what anybody should have gone through. And on top of that, this was pre-internet at any capacity. I mean, there was no Twitter. There was none of this stuff. But it happened in March of 1991. Okay? So it happens in March of 1991. All of that being said, it didn't start the riots that day or that weekend. None of that came from there. It came well over, we're talking like a year later, almost? Because think about this. March of 91. April 29th, 1992. So a year later is when it went down, and that was the acquittal. And that's when it all went to hell in a handbasket. If they're not charged, I think what you're seeing now would explode like you couldn't believe. And it was ugly. And it was awful. And the aftermath itself of being in these communities, because I grew up right there. I grew up about 15, 20 minutes from where it all started in Long Beach. I grew up, and it was an ugly situation, but it was also the aftermath. If you drive down through parts of where it went down, these many years later, there's still stuff boarded up, stuff burned out, stuff that never comes back. And that's, watching this stuff happen last night and over the last couple of days, it is what you're leaving behind is a mess that hurts the community itself on top of something that's already hurt the community. And that's why when you see stuff like this, the frustration is we're not talking about trying to come to grips, to talk about, to really look at this in any other way, because we've been taken away from that because we're watching things burn. We're watching CNN reporters get arrested. We're watching fires. We're watching people loot. We're watching those things get built back up. By the way, if you're going to do it and you do it in the time of a pandemic, when businesses are already struggling, the chances of a lot of these businesses even thinking about coming back may be slim to none, and none may have just left town. And what's that do for a community? And many people that come there are coming there to cause hell and havoc, and they leave it for that community. You'll hear it all the time in situations. Why do they go and the people attack their own community? That's not their community. Most of these people who are agitators are probably from well outside that community coming. And it's a very small few, but it only takes a little bit. And the people in the community are the ones who are suffering twice. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show, your Twitter. Tweet at me. Text the program as well. Love hearing from all of you. But just something to think about. I think we all think about, we look back on the riots and Rodney King and all that stuff, that we thought that was an immediate thing. And it was not anywhere near being immediate. It was well over a year after all of that. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show. Twitter. Tweet at us. Rough Greens. My dog loves Rough Greens. You guys hear me talk about doodles. For all of my lizards and all the snakes and the wacky stuff I have a dog named Doodle, and he's the wackiest of them all. He's a Chiweenie. He's got bad hips. We rescued him. We thought he was like 4 or 5. Found out he's like 11. But he's always struggled. And if you get near his hips and you even pet him in certain areas, he's nippy. And so we started giving him Rough Greens. And it has changed him in ways that are just spectacular. He's jumping, he's running, he's playing with the puppy. He does stuff that he's never done before. It is awesome. So dog food, he likes he's got his certain kind of dog food, but that dog food's dry food, and it's been sitting in those, those things aren't meant to be living, if you will. That stuff's meant to be on a shelf for God knows how long. So Rough Greens isn't dog food. You sprinkle it on your dog's food. It tastes great for them. They love it. And it's 25 all-natural vitamins and minerals, digestive enzymes, 15 probiotics. You got omega-3, 6, and 9. It's incredible. They eat it up, but the change came about 7 days later. I saw a change start to happen. And after 10 days, it's a new Doodle, and it's growing. Go, Doodle, go. $14.95. That's what you start with. It's a jumpstart program. Your dog is going to love Rough Greens. If you love your dog's got some issues, Rough Greens can reduce or completely eliminate your dog's symptoms. How do you get it? You go to roughgreens.com/Chad or call 833-MyDog88. That's RUFFgreens.com/Chad or call 833-MyDog88. Rough Greens, we make any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
When the adrenaline dump happens and then there is no launch, astronaut Katie Coleman says it can be tough. In 1999, her shuttle mission was scrubbed to T-minus 7 seconds. She says it's easy to tell yourself you will not get excited about the next attempt going through all the motions again. But then she says,
something about putting a spacesuit on, you just can't help it, because when you put a spacesuit on, you really might go to space. And it's so amazing.
The hardest part about her scrub launches, she tells me, was facing her mom afterwards.
Because Katie's a disappointment. Are they going to go tomorrow? Right? Are they going to go? That's an interesting question. Jim Bridgestein here is the guy who's like running all of NASA, doing all that stuff, talked a bit about the opportunities.
We have these very unique opportunities of time. It's interesting when you talk about launching to the International Space Station, your launch window is not a window at all. It's instantaneous. And if you don't meet it, you don't go.
That's right. But are you going to go?
We will go when we are ready. Safety is the highest priority.
But are you going to go?
We are going to launch American astronauts on American rockets from American soil.
So they'll try it tomorrow. If not, they'll try it again on Sunday. If not, they'll try again on Tuesday. Because people have plans on Monday. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. Jobs, COVID-19, men, women.
There's a gender gap among the unemployed due to COVID-19.
Women are disproportionately negatively affected, have a higher unemployment rate than men.
Bankrate senior economic analyst Mark Hamrick.
Women were a big part of the healing story coming out of the financial crisis and Great Recession, and now they are suffering the most.
A study by Citigroup finds women are twice as likely to have been laid off or furloughed since the start of the pandemic, in part because they comprise a bigger percentage of some of the hardest hit jobs, including those in the hospitality and service sectors.
Oh, now COVID is... It's the problem nowadays. Stuff like COVID. everywhere. I mean, you've got race issues, you've got gender issues, now you've got this. But let's not forget that it kills men more than it kills women. There's that. So we're okay with that. That we're fine with. The job side of it, though, the hospitality industry is just crushed. It is destroyed. And think, I stayed at a hotel last night that was virtually empty. Some of the hotels I normally stay at because I live so far out of town, I'll stay out here once, maybe twice a week. Some of those rooms that were normally ridiculous amounts, especially during the wintertime. Summer, a lot of stuff drops around, but in the wintertime, things that you would pay $200, $300, $400 a night for, you get for like $50, $60. And you're like, where do you want to go? I mean, you want to sleep up here in the front desk? We don't care. I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's that dead. The parking lots are empty, and that disproportionately hurts a lot of the people in the hospitality industry that were women. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. It's the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Our young generation is clearly lost, man. Clearly lost, man. Like, I don't even know what to say no more, man. Like, you youngsters just going around, just busting guns in crowds, kids getting killed, and it's clearly the generation after us, man, that's so lost, man.
That right there is George Floyd. That is the gentleman who was killed. Those are his words. Talking about this generation. Talking about how lost they are. Talking about how worried they are.
Yeah, Floyd, that the truth, man, right there, because he could bust a gun. Man, I knew it was crazy then. My age saying this here, man. You know what I'm saying? And condoning this shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like half them young shooting them guns go home and they knees shaking at night. But they don't show it to nobody because, they ain't tough then. Hey, man, come on home, man. One day it's going to be you and God. You going up or you going down.
Pretty real, pretty powerful there. What happens tonight? I don't know. We've had 2 days of unrest, each day bigger than the day before, each day worse than the day before. National Guard in place. When I was in working in the riots in 92, the first couple days were, just awful. But then when the military, the National Guard, got called in, it was it was quelled really quickly. It's a tough thing. And, I know everybody wants the wheels of justice to change like that. Like this get charged the whole 9 yards, but they are going to make sure that everything's in place. And the county attorney even talked about the fact that we got to do this right, because if we don't and we miss something, we make a mistake, it'll be worse.
I will just point to you the comparison to what happened in Baltimore in the Gray case. It was a rush to charge. It was a rush to justice. And all of those people were found not guilty. I will not rush to justice. I'm going to do this right. And those folks who know me in the African community know I will do my very level best. But I will not rush justice, because justice cannot be rushed.
Mike Freeman there. And I think he's right. He is. And he wants to get back everything. He wants to get back everything. Because what if you go today and you charge him for murder, and then later on or tomorrow, it's probably going to be a few days because the coroner comes out and says, look, his neck, while he was on him, there wasn't the force that you think. He died of whatever, something else. And if you're going to go to court, and now that you've charged them with murder based on the knee being in the neck and stuff, and you find out, nope, it was something else, and he had an underlying condition, and you're not going to be able to prove that in court, because in life, what is it? It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. It would be ugly. And like I said earlier, Rodney King, the riots happened when? Not after the video was released. It was well over a year afterwards that the riots happened, after the acquittal. So this is one of those situations where measure twice, cut once. Get everything and all the ducks in the row. Get everything that you have. So when you present it, this is it. We're not going to be surprised that the coroner comes out and says, guess what he died of, guys? He had a pulmonary embolism. He had an aneurysm. He had and you're like, oh, and they're like, he would have, he could have died any time. You don't want that, because at that point in time, a good attorney's going to go, no. Now, the FBI and the civil rights violation, all that stuff, that they're going to look, all of that stuff, that is not the criminal side of this, what they're looking at right now in the local charges. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Top of all of that, we've got this thing called the coronavirus, or as the kids call it, the Rona. I don't know how long it's going to be here. Washington Post, very interesting article, quoting several, virologists and epidemiologists talking about this thing being endemic, meaning it's going to stay here potentially and not be seasonal, and that it might be something that we have to live with rather than see potentially, a cure. Doesn't mean, we'll have, I'm assuming, even if there's never a vaccine, that we are going to eventually get to a point where we have not only herd immunity, but we'll have some sort of therapeutics to treat this thing with. But pandemic, global. I mean, pandemic is this word, an epidemic. Regional, geographically regional, certain area. Somebody gets hit with something. Endemic is it's here, like just here. HIV, here. It's not going anywhere. They've not found a cure for it. They've not had a vaccine for it, but they do have therapeutic treatments. But there is no season for it. It's not like, oh my God, it's HIV season. So no, it's here. And a lot of people are thinking this may be potentially, there may not be a second wave. There may be just a wave. And we may have to figure out how we live with it and take it on in a much different way, especially as we think about reopening and states start looking towards phase 2 and 3. That's an interesting thought.
No one is at zero risk from this virus. Unclear exactly why it's hitting this age group right now particularly hard. Leading theories are it's due to behavior, either socializing or work. But again, it really underscores how everyone has a role to play in stopping this spread, because anyone can get infected.
Anyone can, and some do get infected, and a majority, and I do mean a vast majority of people, will survive. And out of that vast majority of people, meaning almost everyone, a good majority of those won't even have any symptoms. And then you'll have some that have moderate symptoms, but not enough that you're seeking treatment. Some that you may go to the doctors for. Some that you may be hospitalized. And if we cut it down to a very small version, a small slice, some that may be hospitalized and have certain treatments like ventilators, ICU, things of that nature. But it's not going anywhere. And at least I think anytime in the near future. So living with it, and that's kind of been, what I've talked about is the living around it, learning to live with it, to coexist with it while we search for the treatment, but to also do it in such a smart way where, look, these are the age groups that are really at risk. These are the people, no matter what age, that are really at risk. And everybody else is, while there's a risk in everything, including catching the flu, the reality is your risk is minimal. Kids, the risk of it for the kids, look at the hospitalizations globally of the kids. It's less than 2%. And the majority of those that have been hospitalized were struggling with underlying conditions. So, like, I look at school. We open up school. We're not going to open up school. And what are we going to do? Look at the inequities, too, with online. I mean, that's some of the stuff that I've seen that it's just been so glaring, where so many people don't have the kind of access to the internet, and the schools themselves aren't set up in certain ways to help these kids. And it's my son's lucky. Not going to lie to you. He's super privileged, right? He's got a mom and dad that care. He's got a school that is set up for it. It is already a STEM school, so these kids, they take their academics, they're serious. Like they go full jihad with the academics. I mean, there is no half-assery. But they're talking about bringing all, okay, this state's going to do that and that state, and here's the CDC guidelines. The kids have to be 6 feet apart. They're not going to be able to go outside and play. You're going to have to follow social distancing rules, and you're going to have to put up potentially plexiglass between desks, and we may have staggering times. And I'm thinking to myself, you're insane. That is never going to work. It's just never going to work. And the thought process of sending children to school with masks on, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, all the way up through high school, thinking that they're going to not really have a chance to get their wiggles out. They're going to be able to pay attention with masks on, not touch each other, not play, not share anything. You're insane. You are nuts. Maybe you've not read Lord of the Flies, but I have. And I'm telling you right now, that's a recipe for disaster. And imagine how gross by the end of the day. Because the whole thought, epidemiologists, everybody else says the same. If you wash your hands, you keep your hands away from your face, the chances of you getting flu, any of these, the chances is minimal. Now throw a child in, particularly young boys, tell them in their gross sweaty mask that they've had on all day, that's uncomfortable and nasty, not to touch it and not to touch their face. See how that goes. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us and text the program as well. Raycons! Speaking of that, your kids may be home. Why not get yourself a pair of Raycons? Because you're home, you're working out of your house, you're sitting there, you're frustrated. Why are you frustrated? Because the kids are screaming in the background. You can't hear what your boss has to say. You're on a Zoom call. You got the dangling wires. Every time you turn, you had to yell. The little ear things, and falls out in your little headphone, and you're frustrated. Raycons will solve that. Half the price of anything else out there. Noise isolating fit, 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, and yes, comfortable. No dangling wires, no stems, and start well under $100. Now's your chance to get a pair of these. You're going to love them. And that time of night when you're just sitting there and you're like, I just want to listen to this music or this podcast and veg out, you can do it knowing full well you're listening to it on the best earbuds around. What? Get yours today. Save even more money by going to buyraycon.com/Chad. 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 What's in a gender? Wait do you hear this? This is a great way to just finish everything off. Chad Benson Show.
let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
Politically correct world we live in. And we do live in a world that is at times just insane. I am very respectful, right? I don't care who you love. I don't care who you want to marry. I don't care what you want to call yourself. I don't care about any of those things. I'm respectful. I respect that. I don't care what you worship, who you worship. If you don't worship, I'm respectful. I don't care who you voted for or who you didn't vote for. I'm respectful. And I will always be that way. I'm going to treat you as a person, not as a Republican or a Democrat, right? Not as an African American or an Asian. I'm going to treat you as you're a human being, you're a person. That's what I'm going to treat you. But can I just ask you this in this politically correct loony world, especially with all the genders and stuff? And if you make it too hard for me, I might have to pass. Not that I won't treat you with respect. I just don't know why. I don't know if I want to be, just hanging out. This is something we were trying to discuss yesterday. We were listening. I have no idea. This is totally new to me.
My pronouns are they, them, and I'm proud to be agender.
So this is your pronouns. They, them, which when I was a kid, like they meant two. So like they, them over there. And then if you looked, it was usually more than a singular, but that's it. And now agender, not a, and then, space, gender, agender. This is interesting.
Being agender means that I'm not limiting myself. I have always felt some kind of way about gender roles. Everyone sees themselves in different ways, and that is a very personal thing. And even within the gender binary, people do see themselves as individuals within that. So for those of us outside of the gender binary, that's true as well.
Huh? What? Wait, hold on a second. Wait, what? Oh, it's just getting started.
I do often out myself verbally as agender. For me, I think I look the same, but I change up my garment styles very often. And it's not like an everyday thing. Sometimes it's, I'm on like a 6-month thing where wearing very loose-fitting clothing feels just really right.
I'm feeling like, and this is just me, our friendship's going to be tough. And it's not because I think you're a bad agender, non-gender, could be a gender, kind of a gender. I just feel like there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of work, and I also feel like no matter what I say, depending on the day, I could say something that may offend you.
What I love about being agender is always finding potential, more and more potential to self-actualize. That is an amazing feeling for me.
Again, I feel like it wouldn't matter what I say. At some point in time, there's going to be conflict.
Some people get it, some people don't.
No. I don't know who gets it. So I want you guys to understand it. She is a gender, or he is a gender, or he, him, they, them, they, a gender. They're confusion. It's just all I'm saying. I can't imagine thinking about that all day. Like, do you think about anything else? Like people who get offended easily, people who are just the Karens of the world. It's like, is there anything else you think of? Or is it just you're walking around, you start your day disgruntled and angry, and you're on high alert? Like there's an alert. Remember when we the threat alert, that you have an offense alert, and it's just there. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Solid, fun, short week. These are good. I like these. Enjoy these short weeks. Have a safe, good weekend. Be kind to each other. Lots of stress going on from the coronavirus to what we've got going on in Minneapolis right now. Take a deep breath. Get outside. Be kind. Smile a little bit. No matter what your gender is or isn't. and let's do it again on Monday. As always, night, Jack.
This is the Chad Benson Show.